Hey, this is Stef, and welcome to the Together Moving Forward podcast. Season 2. Hello, everyone. I'm Stef Vachon, and I'm a human being. Again, welcome to the Together Moving Forward podcast, finally loving and respecting ourselves. This is a podcast for the 2S LGBTQI+ community, along with our friends, allies, and all human beings. I'm really happy to be here with you today. To start, I need to say that I'm not a psychologist, a specialist, or someone with a college degree. I'm just a regular guy here to share with all of you and support each other. I won't tell anyone how to do things. Instead, I'll share my journey, and we will all share our journeys together. We will learn from each other how to move forward. We just passed the month of June, Pride Month, and for so many places in the world. But since it is Pride season, there are still many places celebrating Pride. Like in my hometown of Montreal, we celebrate ours starting at the end of July and the beginning of August. That makes me think of something. And before we meet today's guest, I would like to share a little personal story with you that made me realize even more why Pride is so important, especially right now. Picture this. This happened last summer during our Pride in Montreal. So we were at some friend's house having dinner. They're supposed to be really good friends of ours, who said that we were like a part of their family, a straight couple, a man and a woman. So we are all there enjoying a good time when they ask us what our plans are for the next weekend. We tell them it's going to be Pride and that we definitely go to the parade. We ask them, why don't you guys come with us? The woman makes this weird face, turns to her husband, and asks him in a mockingly funny tone, honey, would you like to go with the boys at the parade next weekend? And she starts laughing. He then makes this horrible, disgust face and replies, yeah, right, like I'm going to go there, while rolling his eyes. I reply, why not? And they immediately change the subject. So I'm sitting right there, and my mind is like, what am I doing here? What are we doing here with these people who are supposed to love us and respect us? I don't know. What do you guys think? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Okay, let's move on with today's guest. I don't know Ian very well yet. We only met briefly at a figure skating competition last spring in Ottawa, Canada. We were both competing. When I got there, a friend of mine said, oh, Ian just arrived. You know him, right? And I responded, no, not yet, but I can't wait to see him. And she said, oh my God, you will absolutely love him, with the biggest smile on her face. We only had the chance to chat for a few minutes. I was only there for a few hours before heading back home, but I immediately felt comfortable around him. Ian seems like this kind of guy who's authentic, comfortable being who he is, and open to talk about the real things. I love that about people. Simple, straight to the point, no fluff. I call this real. And on top of it, I think we have a lot in common. I'm really excited to have him on the podcast, and I can't wait to get to know him better. So let's go right now. Hello, Ian, and welcome to the Together Moving Forward podcast. I'm really happy you accepted the invitation.
Bonjour Stéphane, bonjour à tous. Je ne connais pas beaucoup le français. Je pas semblant.
That's already pretty good.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for having this podcast. It's a really great resource for our community. Can I just say I really like. So I've seen some of the episodes of your podcast, and every time you have your introduction, I was like, wow, Stefan is like this 3-dimensional pastel pillow. Like, like you just want to have like a 3-dimensional copy of you and put it as like a sofa pillow or something.
Oh, you're too sweet.
It's cool.
That's too sweet. Which one have you listened to?
All of them. I've actually.
Oh, you're so cool. Thank you. So, Ian, can you give us a quick introduction to who you are?
who I am. Yeah, who am I? Um, that's always a question I keep asking myself. Um, I have, I kind of, in terms of career wise, divide between two roads. I work in the tech industry in program directing and program management. One of the last companies I worked for was as a program manager for Google. And I am also a performer and choreographer in the entertainment industry. And so I've worked in LA as an actor, as a dancer, choreographer. And I've done several music videos, TV shows, commercials, and actually toured with Sesame Street Live as Bert.
Really?
Yeah, that was a really fun experience, but that was also a very scary experience for me because that was my first time traveling away from California on my own, and so it was a big life learning experience, especially because that when I was on tour with Sesame Street, uh, we were in we landed in New York on September 10, 2001. Some of the cast went to New Jersey for our hotel, and some of us stayed in New York, and I stayed with a friend. And then the next day, September 11th happened.
Wow.
And so we had that happened while we were in the city, while I was on tour, and yeah, that the whole experience being part of tour was really I did a lot of growing up in that. And it's like most people think of Sesame Street, oh, very whimsical, very cutesy cutesy, you know, like you must have had a great time. There's, you know, it's also a job. And
Yeah.
the people that you're with, your coworkers, are also your neighbors and cohabitors. And so when you're young, you take a lot of experiences like with that because you're put in this kind of microscope every day with people, you know, who you didn't grow up with, you know, came from different countries, different states, different cities, and different ideologies. And so it was it's very memorable for me. Like I think for me that was very formative, and I learned a lot.
That reminds me of when I toured with the Ice Capades. At first, I was, my God, I just turned 19, I think.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
A
Yeah.
lot of, yeah. And I was leaving, was not speaking English, left my hometown, my French Canadian hometown. And yeah, it was, how can I say that? It was pretty tough as much as it was a lot of fun. But it was, I learned English really quick. That's what I can tell you because I knew like I had to learn really quick to make sure I would understand and make friends. And, but yeah, there was a lot of funny stories about learning English. I learned all the bad words, of course, and they made me they made me say the bad words to everybody, but it was fun. But yeah,
I
that
feel like
reminds me.
that's yeah. I feel like that's a prerequisite, or not even prerequisite. I feel like uh, 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 me myself also not having English as a second language. I also had the same thing come through with like people saying like, "Oh, this is what you need to learn." And it's like, okay, because it's yeah, you know, it's like, oh, it's I guess it's part of the English language. I wasn't a skater like you know, like growing up, but I do remember just hearing the word ice capades all the time. You know, a lot of the times when people talk about figure skating and you hear about shows, that's the one that you would hear a lot of. And so to be a part of that at 19 it must have been like super like surreal, like for you.
It was a culture shock. It was totally a culture shock. Like I said, I was to leave my French hometown and learn English. I have a funny story actually. We were getting in New York City, and me and my friends that we all saved on money because we wanted to go see shows and go out and everything. And but when we got to New York, one of the girls said, "Oh, we have to go to Macy's," and then I said, "Macy's? What's Macy's?" You know, she was petrified that I did not know what Macy's was. It was like it was pretty funny. But anyway, when we then came to Quebec to tour, I kind of did the same thing to her in another way, but it's a way. It's funny. But yeah, I didn't know what Macy's was. It was like horrible. Okay, now that we know a little bit more about you, you immigrated from Philippines to the US with your family. Can you
Yeah.
tell us more about the challenges you had to face?
We immigrated to America. It was around the time that a lot of the citizens were just not happy with what was going on with the Philippine government. They had Ferdinand Marcos was the president, and kind of like talking in parallels to what's happening in the US right now is that like anytime that you had people speak up against the government, like they were thrown in internment camps. Like a lot of the people in my family were advocates, for people oppressed by the government, and they would speak out, and they were thrown in internment camps. And um, the boiling point for my family was when Ninoy Aquino got assassinated, and he was basically a challenger for President Marcos's presidency, and he was gaining a lot of traction. Ninoy Aquino was supposed to be the people's people, and then when he was assassinated, it was just so many people were just devastated. And my family talked about like the turmoil and unrest in the country, and my dad and my mom decided that they really wanted us to be away from like all of what was happening in the Philippines and try to start over and give us like a better life than what we had. So we gave up a lot because in the Philippines we were considered middle upper class, and so our grandparents and my aunt and uncle in America sponsored us to come in as immigrants, and so I was 8 years old when we got into this country. Now, uh, at the time that we immigrated to America, there was rudimentary like American programming on TV. We didn't have the internet. English wasn't an official second language. So I remember watching Sesame Street. I remember watching Richie Rich, the cartoon, and it was funny because when we talked about going to America, I was dreaming like, oh, it's gonna be like Richie Rich, where we have like houses with 7 floors, and we have like a helicopter pad, and in the rooftop, we're gonna be going to school. That those especially like being more privileged, being having privilege in the Philippines, like that was it was like, okay, we're going from this to that because in America you have that. Um, Not realizing that like in when we come into America, there we basically have to start over. For a lot of immigrants in America, if you had bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, many times they're not recognized by jobs and companies here as legitimate. And so people had to start over. My dad was an engineer for Atlas Copco, and he used to get sent to like Australia and do like all these trips when he was in the Philippines. When he came here, he was having a hard time finding a job, and so my mom ended up doing admin assistant work, and my dad like ended up doing like route sales, and it was humbling. Um, as a child, we didn't really get to process like the struggles with that because we just, we I want to get fed. I want to have this for breakfast. I want to play video games. I want to, play outside and then take a nap like whenever. Like, as a child that you don't really think about all the things that are working in the background to make those things happen for us. Um, but then there's this add layer now when I start school is bullying. And it initially it was because I didn't speak much English. It took me 3 years, I would say, before I got a really, really good handle on the language. What really helped, though, was when my cousins would lock us in a room for the summer and have us watch all of these videos, or these movies, like um, 16 Candles and Breakfast Club, Porky's and Porky's Revenge, and just learn
Oh,
all.
geez. Yeah, I watched them in French,
Oh,
translated in
okay.
French.
I figured they would have that translated in multiple languages. That was how I learned English.
Cool.
And then when I started school, I had an extra class I had to take as ESL, and then I would get pulled out, and it was like a lot of listening and a lot of talking, and it wasn't like I just wanted to fit in. Growing up, I had a lot of interests that didn't necessarily resonate with what the typical boy would be expected to do, right? When we immigrate to America, or even before me immigrating to America, some of the pastimes was round up the boys in the neighborhood and go play basketball, um, or just hang out with each other, like playing all these like games. I remember, like, for me, I grew up singing. Uh, there's a video somewhere of me on my first birthday holding a microphone, and that was something they enjoyed doing. I played piano in the Philippines as well, and so when I came here, I was trying to find teachers that could teach both. We really couldn't afford much, so I didn't really have lessons to keep them. But if it's something that you love, you just do it.
Mhm.
I remember seeing gymnastics on TV. I was like, yeah, I want to do that. And I was like, that's cool that they learn how to do the splits. I want to learn how to do splits. Um, and so, we had a yard in front of my grandparents' house. And I remember just practicing splits on that. And I remember some kids would come by with slingshots and would just sling rocks at me and my siblings just for stretching, for flipping around, for tumbling. I was very hard headed. And so if it was something that I wanted to do, I was going to do it. And I think a lot of the times when I felt bullied, it was basically for other people's comfort. I think I realized that some people aren't comfortable seeing something that's different from them. And I think that's why I was probably bullied. I remember in seventh grade, I auditioned to be a cheerleader. And in the city where I grew up here in America, it was unprecedented. They haven't had a male cheerleader before in either middle school or high school, or any of the middle schools or high schools. But it was something I wanted to do because I saw my sister did it and she made a team, and I was like, I want to do what my sister did because I always copied whatever she did. And so I auditioned and then I made it. And so I was kind of proud of it because they like, okay, what do we do? We don't have any costumes for guys. And so I had all these things special ordered, and I would go to practices, and it's just something that made me happy for some reason, that people saw a guy wearing a cheerleader costume in middle school, and it was immediately like, oh, what a faggot. That was actually where I learned the word faggot.
Mm.
I just tolerated it. I tried to tolerate as much as I could, because at the end of the day, when I go into practice, it's just something that made me feel good being a part of, and the people that I was with, like, made me feel a part of that. But I think the turning point for me was it was the last class of the day, and if you have a game after that you have to cheer at, they require you to wear your cheerleading costume, to basically all of your classes. And so that after you're done with your last class, you go, and they show you off to the game, or you go to the game if it's at your school. And I remember just leaving my class, and I remember someone coming up to me really close. I didn't really think anything because I wasn't paying attention. And all of a sudden, they just like put one hand on my shoulder, the other one just went like, right in the gut.
No way.
I reeled over because I was not expecting that. I wasn't even preparing for the impact. That took my breath away, and I just keeled over and I just started crying. And I think what made me cry even harder was that no one came to help me. They just kind of just stared. And that was kind of a pivotal moment for me. I just picked myself up and I went into the car crying. Dad didn't really listen to me. I just kind of just, no one could really know how to console me because they weren't really trying. And so I just kind of sat by myself. And I think I remember going into my room like that night and I was just like, it's like, I think that really started to harden me. And it's like, you know what? Fuck this shit. If anything, I think it just kept strengthening my resolve because it's something I enjoy doing. And it just made me upset. It's like, why are people like this? People who used to be friends as soon as they got into middle school and they weren't comfortable with the things I was doing, it's like they would create new friends and then they create an alliance to basically make fun of me. So at that point, I couldn't wait to get out of junior high and just go into high school where I can actually make friends of my own. It's just, but even high school like had its things. At least in high school, I started to get a sense of who I really was, and I didn't, it was just, it's funny because people tell you you're gay or you're faggot and stuff like that. I didn't even realize for myself, like completely realize that that could be my identity until like I was like 18 when I was going to college. But it's not fair for other people to say this is what you are when it should be an internal dialogue that somebody has to say to themselves. And it's like, just because somebody is presenting themselves in a way that doesn't resonate with who you are doesn't make them gay. I think like a lot of the things I had to go endure growing up is really resolved into like making me who I am today. But yeah, just
During your high school or even before that, were you questioning your identity, your sexuality, or you did not understand it yet? Like, how were you dealing with that?
I think I didn't quite understand it. I So here's the thing. I was always very inquisitive. I'm always questioning things, and people don't like it when I question they don't have any answers to. So one of the things growing up, that especially through middle school, was that I the girls saying, "Oh my God, he's so cute," but then they'll also say the same thing to other girls, like, "Oh my God, she's so pretty. Oh my God." But as a guy, as a boy,
Mm.
allowed to make comments about your peers or people of your own gender, and it was confusing for me because I thought that there's guys that were pretty good looking. I just thought like, oh, I think maybe because of the some of the things I experienced growing up, I just thought like, I think we all feel like that, but we just get repressed from as
Mhm.
guys. We get repressed from really saying how we feel about other guys because I felt that, but I was like, but you don't say anything because if you say something, then you'll get hit in the gut again. Like that
Mhm.
was kind of the thinking that I had. But then there were times where it's like, I was questioning, it's like, do I really think that they're just good looking? Or I couldn't really question the, like the attractive, how I'm attracted to other guys, because at the time I was also attracted to girls as
Okay.
well. Like I had a girlfriend like in high school. And I think at the end of the day, I was just like, well, I'm just dumb or I was just unique, depending on whatever day is. And it's like, I'm weird for a lot of people. People don't understand me. And, oh, I just hit the
Yeah.
table. Repressed anger.
And the camera just shaked a little bit too.
Thanks for the free therapy.
No, I find this interesting because that makes me realize how much like I was really young when I realized that I was attracted to boys, but I could not put the finger on it. I did not understand, but I felt it really young. And I remember having the same crush than the girls on the same boys, and I think that's why it hurt me so much even more to be called a fag and all that, because I was like, okay, they're right. They are right. I knew they were right, but not that I was a fag just because of my identity. So I think this is why I felt even more ashamed of it, because it was like, okay, they're just telling me the truth, and I'm the only one in this school or on earth like that. You just made me realize even more why I felt so much more ashamed so young. It's quite
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, it's not fair
No.
because you had people who place you in a label that you either weren't ready yet to, acknowledge. It's like it's your journey. Like no one should be able to tell you like who you are, what you are. Um and it, like especially like when we're growing up, everything is formative, right? We're forming our social constructs, we're forming our, like how we feel about things, the things that we liked as children. Sometimes it's not the same things that we like anymore as adults. And so things like those things like being said like have so much weight to it. And but people don't realize that. They just think, oh, it's just words, because they're not on the other end of that. I mean, even to this day, like some of the things that were said to me when I was younger, still, I can still remember every word verbatim, everything that I felt that day. And I don't think that was fair for you. Straight people don't have like, oh, like am I or am I not moments.
Mhm.
And it's just this natural like progression of like, oh, who, you're gonna one day marry and have kids and you're gonna have this house. And those weight of expectations is also placed on us, but it's like almost like we have to create like two paths of like discovery. I
And
Yeah,
it
I
should
think.
not matter. It should just be whatever comes up. When we are with our son, and I never tell him, like we joke at school, when he's in school, and I say, "Do you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend?" And he's not there yet, but we right away make him understand that whatever you prefer when you grow up, it doesn't matter, and we're still gonna accept you even if you're straight. I'm kidding, but you know, no, but like it should not matter. It should be natural
Yeah.
for a kid to grow up and feel, just learn to know who he is or she is and what she or he likes. That's it.
Yeah,
So,
props to the parents to who are creating these open conversations for their children, because that is going to go a long way to keeping your children connected to you. I was just fed. I keep getting fed entries from the AIDS Memorial page on Facebook whenever I come into Facebook, which recently hasn't been too much because it's hard to kind of keep certain things away from the
mhm.
news, coming in. But I like seeing what other people in our community have gone through, especially like during the AIDS crisis in the 80s. It's and it was terrible what a lot of families did, as soon as they found out their child was gay, as soon as they found that their child had HIV or that they were dying of AIDS, and just basically tossed them aside as if they never grew up with them. And then yet I also hear stories about the parents who, when they find out, it's like I've never known this part of you because you kept it from me, because they were living in fear of like what would happen. And it's that tears me, like that really like eats me up like stories. Because I have like, have I can relate to so many of those stories. Like me personally, I experienced abuse, emotional, physical, both from, people in my family and also from people who, like in school settings, outside of that. And it sometimes it just, when you go through that, it kind of like weakens like people's resolve. And that's why it's really tragic seeing, like that we have something like the Trevor Project to give resources for people, who are, now in suicidal ideation or, thinking about suicide because of who they are. Just, it makes me really sad. And for all the things I went through, it's something that I don't necessarily regret because it's made me who I am. And a lot of what I experienced, I had to kind of like let it like shape me. It really made me it kind of hardened me in the sense that like I don't put up with people's shit. I think
Yes.
yeah. I
Yes
think,
and no, I would say like you didn't have to go through this. I didn't have to go through this.
yeah.
And
Yeah, no one
um,
has to. Yeah,
no,
they
no
should.
one should. And
Exactly.
this is, and with what's going on in today's world, and what we hear that we're not supposed to grow up as who we are. This is exactly what pushed me to do this podcast and have people like you come in, because we did not have this, and
Yeah.
that would have made my life so much easier, because I had nothing, no one to look up to. So with what's going on right now, this is what we need to do.
For like me, like growing up, Sesame Street didn't have talked about like queer like issues, or like just being open. Like what I loved about Sesame Street is that they didn't talk about being gay like specifically, but they just the message of like embrace yourself like for everybody and all experiences was like I think that resonated to me. But we didn't have anything specifically like tailored for us to say like, oh, there's someone else out there. We didn't have the internet. The kids coming out nowadays, like I'm seeing them come out at a younger and younger age, and I think that's so amazing that they feel comfortable enough to know who they are at such a young age. I've seen it, working in musical theater. I work with a lot of kids, and a lot of them are, I've known, kids who've come out at 8, at 9, at 11, 12,
Wow.
and then have also the parental and familial support and the support of like the people in theater, to do what they do. Like it makes like I try not to think about it because it's like I wish I had that. Like I had to figure out a lot of things for myself. Everything that I've done is because I had to figure it out for myself. Like everything, even uh, being a part of the entertainment industry, like that was all like me. I have no one to turn to for that. Like
Mhm.
coming out, I had no one to turn to for that. Like I came out in a counseling session because I was depressed and I didn't know why. Like that, and I was in college.
Wow. And you did talk a little bit about your family, but how was that in your family? Were you comfortable? Did you have any homophobia? How was that?
After that counseling session, I think it changed a lot of things because the counselor was trying to dig on all these different reasons why I was just not wanting to go to class or not wanting to leave bed. And I think as we kind of went through the sessions, I was like, I think it's because I might be gay. I didn't want to verbalize it. And it took like maybe a couple of sessions and and I said, I think I'm gay. Oh my God, like
Wow.
out of body experiences, like, like that. I've never heard those words uttered out of my mouth like before. And that was when I was 19, 20, 19. Yeah, I just broke after that session. It's like he needs a reboot. um, and so after that, like the counselor was like, okay, like now, like really knew how to help me. I got on antidepressants. I decided because I missed so much school to just withdraw and take a semester off. And I came home. Initially, like my family, just all my siblings were still at home, with my parents. I have like four siblings, two brothers, two sisters. They just knew that I'd taken time off because I'm not doing well. I was depressed. But when I started continuing therapy sessions at home, or when I was at home, but I went to like group therapy, and then I knew there was a moment. There was like, all right, I think I'm definitely know for sure that this is who I am. And so I came out initially as bisexual because I was still trying to sift through a lot of like what I was like feeling before because I had what I thought was like attraction to women too. But I found that like the more I started connecting with other people in the LGBTQ community, that I started really connecting with other men more. And so when I came out with my family, we had like a group meeting. I said, "Hey everyone, blah 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 blah. Oh yeah, I'm bisexual." My mom wasn't in that meeting. She was at a prayer group or something. everyone was silent. Uh, People were fidgeting. I was afraid because that my dad was in that table. That's the man that everyone feared in the family. He was very volatile. Surprisingly, he didn't do much. He's like, okay, if this is who you are, I'm glad you told your family. But like I had one of my siblings was actually rolling her eyes, and yeah, it was an interesting dynamic. But the next few months really was what got both of us closer together because initially she was just like, oh God, what is this? But there's incidents happen after that where I got in a physical altercation with my father, and I decided to pack up my stuff and live in my car for 3 months. And, didn't talk to my family for a few months. I would take a shower at the gym, work at the gym. I would go to, work and then like eat wherever. And so it's great. Like no rent. And I would just park somewhere like safe. And I just remember I was like, okay, I think it's probably time for me to go back to school because this is being the life of a hobo is like it was great, but I really wanted to do things with school. So I remember my friends like, oh, let's go to the club. So it's like you celebrate your last night, like or the last weekend, here in the Bay Area before you have to go back down to LA for school. So I went there, and then I saw my sister, my cousin, and their friends, at the club, and then she like we locked eyes, and she ran to me, and my cousin ran to me, and they all hugged me, and they were crying. They're just like, and I was just kind of like shocked, and I was also like sad and crying too. And she said, "Please come home. We missed you." And I pulled her as like, why I can't come home. It's not a good situation between me and my dad. And so she understood. After that, like I had all my stuff. I went back home just to get my stuff, and my dad was just having watch, just glaring because it's like, how dare this my son like be in this house right now? So I moved back down to LA for school. But like that time period, just me moving away again, just really started changing the relationships I had with my siblings. Like I started being really, really close with my little sister. Before that, we used to be at each other, just cat claws. But um, like I love my siblings, but like me and I mean not but I love all my siblings. But no, why am I saying but? I love my siblings. My little sister and my big sister. Um, I'm so much closer to them now because they've been able to see all the things that I've been through. And I think there's something to be said when you have empathy and you understand what people are going through. Yeah. And I never looked back after that. I was away from my family. Like I was the first one to move away from my house of everybody in my family. So I was gone for several years, just doing my stuff, going to school for computer science, and then like, oh, you can be an actor. I'm like, okay. You can be a dancer. Okay. You can be a choreographer. Okay. And then it's like, get burnt out. And then I was teaching dance at this ice skating rink. And I've loved watching figure skating growing up. Like in the Bay Area, in the San Francisco Bay Area, everyone knows Brian Boitano and Debbie Thomas, Christy Yamaguchi. Those are household names. Like they made the Bay Area proud. And I would watch skating when they were on, but specifically when Christy Yamaguchi came on, because it's like, oh, she's Asian. Like, cool. Like you could do this, and she won a gold medal. Cool. And then Michelle Kwan came after that. And it was like, she's cool too. And I think as a dancer, you also like see these parallels. Like I got really entranced by a lot of the choreography that I would watch in figure skating. And it was to the point where, I'd record all these competitions, you watch them so much over and over. And I was like, oh, this is her opening pose. and I do the choreography with them on the sofa while they're doing that. I still remember watching the 1998 Olympics with Michelle Kwan when she had that spaghetti strap, like velvet blue dress, and she was
Yeah.
sitting there. Her opening pose was like she was on her tiptoes running backwards, and so every time I see that, I was like. And just I don't know, it was really really cool. And so when I got burnt out doing all this stuff in LA, I was like, I need a break. Like I was like 5'8" and 120 pounds. So I was pretty skinny just because I was doing so many things. I was like, I want to get fat. I'm gonna eat burgers, take time off. And I was like, oh yeah, I can do the skating thing too because of this rink has ice skating. And so I was doing it, and then I didn't realize I was gonna fall in love with it. So and 20, geez, when was that? Wow, 22 years later, here I am.
Wow. How do you understand forgiveness in your own journey?
For me personally, the definition of forgiveness is it's not for the other person. It's for yourself primarily, first and foremost, to learn how to compartmentalize like what happened for you to be able to move on.
Mm-hmm.
People think of forgiveness as like, oh, it's like you have to forgive the other person. And they did so many bad things to you, but you have to kind of release them like from that, and so you move on. But like I realized, like for me, it's like I'm forgiving them. I'm not forgetting. No one should forget like trauma. No one should forget the things that you've gone through. Forgiveness is really a way to just say like, you know what, let's start over. Like that's it. Clear the slate with the other person, saying, great, you're forgiven, good, but doesn't mean that we're best friends. Doesn't mean that, we're going to have this relationship again. It's just a way for us to be able to process and be able to move on. I think that everyone deserves to be able to move on from trauma.
What's one piece of advice you'd like to share with everyone today?
I have three.
There you go.
Because of course. I think your first thing is that out of everything, that you go through in life, you have to believe in yourself. Like first and foremost, you have to be your biggest advocate for your own self. I think before you can kind of go to other people for friendship, for love, for support, I think this is what you have to be able to provide yourself first, because it's only when you're healed and you're nurtured in your soul and is when you can actually come out to seek that from other people. And I think like when you are healed and nurtured, it's a magnet for the same people to be attracted to you. It brings in the people who you want to bring into in your life when you are healed. Another thing is when we talked about earlier is like I think what's been my saving grace a couple of times is therapy and counseling. Even if not like in an official capacity, I think we should all have someone in our life who's an advisor, a trusted friend, a confidant, like someone who can really be there for you to kind of allow you to just be yourself and talk about that and just bounce things off without judgment, without like any fear of like, oh my God, what if this person finds out? Like it's, like we can't be our authentic selves if we can't like allow ourselves to ask these questions or to just be honest with somebody else. So find somebody that you trust, even counselor, if it's a resource that you can afford. And then finally, I think uplift other people. We need more of that in our life. I certainly wish I had more people in my corner to support me in all my endeavors growing up, like everything that I did. And I did. I think it just wasn't, sometimes they would do it in their own way. But like for me, in the position I am now, I didn't realize how much compliments can be, for some people, it's hard to kind of receive that. And I think that's really sad.
Yeah. And it helps yourself too when you uplift others. I mean, don't you feel good about it, and it's a two ways giving, you know?
Yeah, I do it because I didn't get a lot of that
Yeah.
growing up, and it it I think like for me, my MO is like whatever I do is I distinctly remember what it's like feeling being on the receiving end of something that I didn't like. And it's like, if I'm on this end now, like, how do I want to move things forward? How do I encourage people? I've seen even like little, even in dance classes or acting, like snippy things, and people say something small and snippy, like I said, like everyone thinks it's just words, right? But, even those things those little jabs, even if it's said jokingly, can just hurt. And I don't want to ever, come across that way with anybody. I want like for everyone that's trying, everyone is just trying. Everyone's not perfect, but everyone that's putting themselves out there, I think needs to be patted on the shoulder because they're putting themselves out there they're judged whether they like it or not.
Mhm. In your own words, what is love?
Love doesn't judge. It's timeless. I feel like if there's a genuine love between like two people, I feel like whatever life throws at us, that there's a way to come back to that. I feel like love is reciprocal. I believe that. I think people say like, well, what if you're the only one feeling that way and the other party doesn't? I think that for me, deep down, that there's still a connection. If it's just a one-way street, a true one-way street, I don't define that as love.
What is love for yourself?
Love for myself is something that when I wake up, I can breathe. I can be grateful for being here, and being able to do what I do. Respecting myself and respecting the things that I've done and respecting the goals that I have moving forward. And I give that to myself because I didn't necessarily receive that, growing up. And uh, that is the basis of how I start my day. Before I can give anybody else love, I have to love myself first.
Well,
All right, sir.
I will let you go.
Thank you.
And
Merci beaucoup.
bienvenue. Merci
merci,
à toi.
merci mille fois. Merci mille fois.
Merci à toi.
Merci à toi.
And see
Bisous.
you soon.
Au revoir.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so much, Ian, for joining us today and sharing such an honest and heartfelt conversation. Your story of resilience, forgiveness, and self discovery shows the true strength that comes from being authentic. Ian leaves us with this important truth: creating your own happiness is one of the most powerful things you can do. My dear friends, it is already time to say au revoir just for now. So please join me next Wednesday for another episode of the Together Moving Forward podcast. Everybody, share this podcast and spread the good news. By sharing this podcast today, you will help someone find the strength to embrace who they truly are. Wherever you are from in the world, we are all connected. Remember, solidarity beats hate. The more we unite, the stronger we become. Because at the end of the day, we are all equally human and we all deserve the same rights. One last thing before I go. Put your hand on your heart and repeat after me, all of us together. My love is valid and I celebrate it. Yep, my love is valid and I celebrate it. Please subscribe now. Your follow helps me keep this podcast alive and growing for our community. My dear friends, see you next week. Ciao. Subscribe now and share to uplift, empower, and make a real difference in our community.